My daughter stopped breathing for 6 seconds, and in those 6 seconds, I felt 400 years of power turn to nothing in my hands. I am Velthara, ruler of the Kalan people, and I was standing in a small medical room on a human station, watching machines fight to keep my child alive. Her name is Ithri. She is 11 years old. She was dying from a sickness in her blood that none of our healers could stop, and I had already been told, by 11 different doctors from 11 different worlds, that there was nothing left to try. The elder physician beside me, a tall Kalan named Doran, placed a hand on my shoulder. "Her body cannot fight this much longer," he said quietly. "We should prepare to say goodbye." I did not answer him. I could not. A queen who cannot save her own child is not a queen at all. That was when the door opened, and a human in a gray work uniform stepped inside without asking permission. His name was Daniel. He worked as a cleaner on the station, pushing a cart through the halls every night, humming songs from his home planet. I had seen him only once before, 3 days earlier, when Ithri had laughed at something he said in the hallway. It was the last time she had laughed at all. "I heard she's getting worse," Daniel said. His voice was calm, but his eyes moved quickly around the room, studying the machines. "I might know something that could help." Doran stepped forward, his face sharp with anger. "You are not a doctor. You clean floors. Leave this room immediately." "I'm not a doctor," Daniel agreed, "but I read. I've been reading everything about Kalan biology for 3 nights straight, because I couldn't stop thinking about that little girl in the hallway." I raised a hand, and Doran fell silent. Even guards learned to obey that gesture. "Speak," I told the human. Daniel walked closer to the bed where Ithri lay, her small body wrapped in wires and tubes. "Back on Earth, my younger brother had a blood problem when he was a kid. The doctors gave up on him too. Then one doctor tried something that wasn't in the textbooks, something risky, because doing nothing meant losing him for certain. My brother is alive today. He has children of his own." Doran scoffed. "Human medicine is decades behind ours. What could your primitive methods possibly offer that our masters of science have not already tried?" Daniel did not flinch. "Maybe that's exactly why it could work. You've been trying the same kind of solutions, built from the same kind of thinking, over and over. I'm offering something completely different. Sometimes different is the only thing left." I looked at my daughter's pale face, at the monitor showing her heartbeat growing weaker with every passing minute, and I made a decision that would have shocked every ruler before me. "Explain it," I said, "now." Daniel spoke quickly, describing a method used on Earth many years ago, before newer treatments replaced it. It involved taking healthy cells from a matching donor and introducing them directly into the patient's blood, forcing the body to relearn how to heal itself. It was rough. It was outdated by human standards. But he believed, based on what he had read about Kalan biology, that our bodies might respond to it in a way human bodies no longer could. Doran argued that no such procedure had ever been tested on our people, that the risk of failure was enormous, that royal blood should never be treated by unproven methods from a species so young to space travel. He was not wrong to be afraid. But fear had already cost me 11 doctors and 11 failures. "If we do nothing," I said, "she dies before morning. If we try this, and it fails, she also dies before morning. Tell me, Doran, what exactly do we have left to lose?" He had no answer. Silence filled the room like smoke. I turned to Daniel. "Who would be the donor? You said it must be a match." "That's the hard part," he admitted. "It needs someone with a compatible blood profile. I don't have access to your medical records, and there's no time to test every person on this station." A young Kalan nurse named Corin, who had been standing quietly near the door, stepped forward. "I might be a match. I am from the same bloodline branch as the royal family, several generations removed." "It is possible," Doran objected immediately, saying it was too dangerous, too rushed, too uncertain. But Corin was already rolling up her sleeve, looking at me with steady eyes. "Your Majesty, I have served this family since I was a child. Let me try." Machines were brought in. A human doctor named Grace, the only medical officer on the station willing to break protocol at that hour, arrived within minutes, pulled from her sleep by an urgent message from Daniel. She examined the plan with sharp, careful eyes, checking every detail Daniel had gathered from old records and forgotten manuals. "This procedure was banned on Earth almost 30 years ago," Grace said, reading through the notes on a small screen. "Too many complications, too many deaths, before better treatments came along. I could lose my position for even considering this." "You could also save a child," Daniel said simply. Grace looked at Ithri's small, still form on the bed, and something in her expression changed. "Get the equipment ready," she said. "We move in 5 minutes." The next hour passed like a fever dream. Machines whirred. Needles were placed with careful, trembling hands. Corin lay on a second bed beside my daughter, her blood slowly drawn and prepared, filtered through equipment never designed for this exact purpose. Grace worked with quick, precise movements, calling out instructions to a small team of nurses who had been pulled from their beds without warning. Daniel stood near the wall, watching every step, occasionally pointing out a detail from his research that Grace had missed in her rush. I stood beside my daughter, holding her small hand, and I prayed to no god in particular, because I had stopped believing gods listened to queens a long time ago. Halfway through the procedure, the monitors began to scream. Ithri's heart rate dropped sharply, then spiked, then dropped again. Grace shouted commands. Nurses moved faster. My chest felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. "We're losing her," one of the nurses said, panic clear in her voice. "No, we are not," Grace snapped back, adjusting a dial with steady fingers. "Daniel, the timing sequence. Tell me again, exactly how you read it." Daniel repeated the sequence quickly, word for word, from memory, exactly as he had studied it 3 nights before. Grace followed his instructions precisely, changing the flow of the treatment at the last possible second. The screaming machine slowly quieted. Ithri's heartbeat steadied, weak but present, like a small flame refusing to go out in the wind. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Even Doran, who had argued against this from the beginning, stood frozen, staring at the monitor with wide eyes. "She's stable," Grace finally said, her voice shaking with relief. "Her body is responding. I don't understand it fully, but it's working." I could not speak. I only held my daughter's hand tighter, watching her chest rise and fall in a steady, living rhythm. By morning, Ithri's fever had broken. By the second day, she opened her eyes and asked, in a small but clear voice, if Daniel could come tell her more stories about Earth. By the 5th day, she was sitting up in bed, eating on her own, laughing at something Corin said about human food being strange and colorful. The Kalan healers who arrived days later, summoned from our home world once word spread of what had happened, studied the treatment with confusion and fascination. They had spent centuries refining advanced methods built on generations of careful science, and none of them had considered something as simple, as old-fashioned, as what Daniel had found buried in forgotten human records. I offered Daniel everything a queen could offer: land, wealth, a title among my most trusted advisors, a permanent place within the royal court, more comfort than his entire family had known in generations. He turned down every single offer. "I like my job," he said, smiling. "Somebody has to keep this station clean. Besides, I'd rather be the guy who fixes things quietly than the guy everyone bows to. Bowing makes me nervous." I laughed, something I had not done in longer than I could remember. "You saved my daughter's life, and all you want is to keep pushing a cart through these halls?" "That, and maybe a promise," he said. "Let Corin get proper recognition for what she did. She's the one who gave part of herself without hesitation. I just read some old books." Corin blushed and tried to wave away the praise, but I made sure, from that day forward, that her name would be remembered in every record of what happened, alongside Grace, alongside Daniel, alongside every person in that room who refused to accept that my daughter's story had to end in tragedy. Ithri grew stronger with each passing week. The disease that had haunted our bloodline for generations did not vanish completely, but it slowed, weakened, became something our healers could finally manage, instead of something that simply waited to win. Kalen scientists began studying human medical history with new respect, searching old records for other forgotten solutions that modern science had left behind in its rush toward newer methods. I still rule my people. I still carry the weight of 4 centuries of decisions, victories, and losses. But I carry something else now too, something I never expected to find on a small, quiet station run by a species we once considered too young to matter. I learned that hope does not always come wrapped in power, or wisdom, or ancient tradition. Sometimes it comes pushing a cleaning cart down an empty hallway, humming a simple tune, refusing to believe that any child's story has to end before it truly begins. My daughter is alive today because a janitor decided that impossible was simply a word other people had given up on too soon.